It all started on a totally normal Tuesday. I was in my kitchen, my 4-year-old Arjun was being a little too quiet. You know, the kind of quiet I'm talking about. And I had this one bar of chocolate I was really looking forward to. Little did I know that chocolate was about to kick off a major parenting crisis. And then I saw him, standing by the fridge, chocolate everywhere. All around his mouth, on his hands, the wrapper just lying there on the floor. I asked him, "Arjun, did you eat Mama's chocolate?" And he looks me right in the eye without even blinking and says, "No, Mama, a piece of chocolate just fell from the sky right into my mouth." Just then, my father-in-law walked in, heard the whole thing, and he was not impressed. He looked at me very seriously and said, "This lying tendency, it has to be stopped now." And that question just rattled around in my head. Is my sweet little boy a liar? I mean, in our family, truth, satya, is a huge deal. It's one of our core values. So it felt like the ground was shaking a little bit. But before I reacted, before I did anything, this little voice in my head said, wait, investigate. What is actually going on inside that little brain of his? So yeah, that single chocolate-covered moment sent me down a rabbit hole. I had to figure out what was happening in his world. Not because he was a bad kid, but because I really needed to understand. And this was my first huge aha moment. Arjun and I were basically living on two different planets. My world, the adult world, is all about facts. Things are either true or they're false, black and white. But his world, his world was this beautiful, messy soup of fantasy, things he wished were true, and what actually happened. It was all just one big thing to him. I learned that what we grown-ups call lying in little kids isn't just one thing. It's actually a bunch of different things. You've got fantasy play, my pet dragon is in the other room. Then there's wishful thinking, like, I totally got a puppy for my birthday when they didn't. Sometimes it's just plain old memory confusion. Arjun's chocolate story? That fell into category 4, trying to avoid getting in trouble. It's the one that feels the most like a real lie, but, and this is important, it's still not the same thing. And that led me to this fascinating concept from psychology called theory of mind. It's basically the moment a child realizes that what's inside their head isn't the same as what's inside your head. They get that you have separate thoughts and you don't automatically know everything they know. And here's the wild part. Most kids under 5 haven't really got this down yet. In fact, learning how to tell a convincing lie is actually a huge developmental milestone. It means their brain gets that separation. Arjun just wasn't there. This explained everything. Arjun wasn't being sneaky or malicious. His logic was more like a magic spell. He really seemed to believe, if I just say it didn't happen, maybe my words can actually change what happened. He couldn't yet grasp that I had my own set of facts, the chocolate smeared all over his face. So with all this new information, my panic started to fade and a plan started to form. I came up with a new 5-step playbook. It wasn't about punishing lies, it was about building a foundation for honesty. So here was my new game plan. First, I was going to join in on his amazing fantasy stories, not tell him they weren't real. Second, instead of asking questions I already knew the answer to, I would just state the truth calmly. Third, and this one was huge, I had to make telling the truth feel 100% safe. Fourth, I'd find fun ways to teach what truth actually means. And finally, I had to walk the walk and admit my own mistakes. And this is where I had to get really honest with myself. I thought back to times he did tell me the truth. When he admitted to spilling juice, I got upset. When he broke a toy, he got a long, boring lecture. No wonder he didn't want to tell me about the chocolate. I had accidentally taught him that telling the truth equals a mad, disappointed mom. I had to fix that immediately. Okay, so this all sounds great on paper, right? A nice, thoughtful parenting strategy. But you're probably wondering what I was wondering. In the chaos of real life with a 4-year-old, did any of this stuff actually work? And the answer is yes. Absolutely yes. It wasn't an overnight miracle, but it completely changed the dynamic between us, starting with the very next time something went wrong. The big test came a few days later. I walk into the living room and see a brand new, very colorful crayon masterpiece on the wall. Now, the old me would have immediately said, "Did you do this?" which is basically just setting a trap for a lie. But the new me took a breath, and I used strategy number 2. I just said, "Oh, I see there's a drawing on the wall. Walls aren't for drawing on. Let's get the sponge and clean it up together. No blame, no shame, just let's fix it." And then, a few weeks later, it happened. The moment that made it all worth it. I heard a crash from the other room. I walked in, and before I could even say a word, Arjun came running up to me, his eyes all wide, and he said, "Mama, I broke the plant pot. I'm sorry." My heart just swelled. It wasn't about the pot at all. It was about the fact that he felt safe enough to come to me with the truth. And that was the real shift. He learned that in our home, the truth is a safe thing, even when you've messed up. And at the same time, I learned to just enjoy his wild stories about flying to the moon and having superheroes for friends. They weren't lies, they were the signs of a creative, healthy imagination hard at work. So, this whole chocolate incident ended up teaching me so much. First, that a kid's lie is rarely about being bad. It's a peek into how their brain is working. Second, my reaction is everything. I have the power to make honesty easy or scary. Third, you have to create safety before you can expect a confession. And maybe my favorite lesson, a big imagination is a superpower, not a character flaw. So I'll just leave you with this to think about. The next time you catch your child in what looks like a lie, what if you didn't see it as something to punish? What if, instead, you saw it as an invitation to step into their amazing, magical, and sometimes confusing world, and just try to see things from their point of view?